Hey y'all, it's me Andrew, I'm back. I just finished a huge game dev sprint and boy are my legs tired. Well, now I get a mandatory crappy joke out of the way, we can actually talk about some serious stuff. It has been a crazy couple of weeks. From finishing a funding application to getting an internal demo up and running, getting some people to test it, announcing the new game, Decaying Salvage, which if you haven't yet checked it out, please look at the trailer, share it around, and also wishlist on Steam. It would really help me out. The reception so far has been great, and I'm really excited to get into doing a new series of devlogs to talk to you about what I feel is a fantastic game. If you haven't seen the announcement trailer yet for Decaying Salvage, go do it. I'll wait, or do it later, whatever, I'm not your mother. Decaying Salvage is an idea that I've had for a while, quite a few years, and something that I just never felt I was skilled enough to do. I could never get the level of interactivity that I wanted, and it's something that now I feel really comfortable in making. Decaying Salvage is about exploring derelict spaceships that have been abandoned for, let's just say, interesting reasons. Each ship has its own story. You're going on board, hacking apart what you need to repair your own ship, and then repairing your ship, trying to get back home. It's about encountering creatures and monsters that have unique ways to combat them or avoid them, and also about high levels of interactivity in the environment. I'm an absolute sucker for environmental interactivity. I love it in games when you can do things such as just like, flushing a toilet. Something like that just brings you closer into the environment, and I'm doing that by implementing more animations. One of the things about my previous game, We Are Not Alone, is that people felt, yes, there's a lot of things you could interact with, but it was kind of very surface level, so I wanted to change that. Some of the things in the game are very inconsequential, such as opening and closing, flushing toilets, turning on taps and showers, but most of all the interaction comes down to when you have to solve puzzles. The other big thing I've done when it comes to animations is interactive animations. Now these are an absolute pain to get running at first, but I'm learning as I'm going and it's getting a lot easier. The animation tree you're seeing here is responsible for the main demo puzzle. Now this is an internal demo, it's not public, that will be coming a little bit later, and it allows the player to do things such as remove the screws on the panel. Once the panel is then open, you have to follow the instructions in order, or you're just gonna blow yourself up. In the demo, these instructions are printed on the device. In the full game, these instructions are something you're going to have to find in the environment. The core loop is essentially scan the ships in the environment, find the part you need, break your way in, find the instruction manual for the part you need to remove, do that while avoiding the enemies that are on board. It feels really good, and from the people that tested the demo created, they think it feels really good too, and feels a lot more atmospheric and a lot more intense than We Are Not Alone did. Now in terms of enemies in the game, I've shown two in the trailer. They're kind of just seen quite briefly because it was just a little announcement trailer, but it's not about running and gunning, it's not about just finding a weapon to shoot things. It's about analyzing what they are, finding information on what they are, and also just trying to find if it's best to avoid them, because these things, some of them really cannot be killed. The two I've introduced so far are the astronaut and the stonemason. Now the astronaut is not actually an astronaut, but an entity occupying a suit. It can move very quickly as it's not really a corporeal entity, and is responsible for decimating the crew of the first ship you'll see, the UGS Catamaran. The other entity, the stonemasons, are the remains of the crew of another ship. Something was on board, it turned their flesh to stone and elongated their limbs. They don't move as long as you're watching them. I wonder where I got inspired by that idea. Another big thing that is always in my mind when making Decaying Salvage is a lesson I learned from We Are Not Alone, and that's about sound design. So sounds in the previous game We Are Not Alone were always there just to basically give an audio cue to the player. There was consistency to them, but it was just kind of an afterthought, and that's something that's changing a lot with Decaying Salvage, something I'm putting a lot of thought into. One of the biggest ones I'm really happy with is that in the initial run of the demo, I just put a very placeholder sound for when you encounter the astronaut in one of the dorm rooms. It was initially just a heavy breathing sound before it stood up and then disappeared, and instead for the trailer, I did this. Now that bone cracking sound, that was actually kind of hard to find, and it was gross to listen to so many bone cracking sounds over and over again. But yeah, I think it just really gives that eerie creepiness of what these creatures might actually be. And it feels and sounds good. So what you've been seeing here, and is a big change from what I said in my last video, I'm using Unity again. Now in my last video, I said that I was moving to Unreal Engine, and that is still going to be the case further down the track. Unreal has kind of become a hobby project at the moment. It was just when working in Unreal, I was making good progress on this title a few months ago, and I realized that it's a lot easier for me to prototype and create stuff in Unity quickly and try flesh things out because I know it so much better. Unreal is still something that, yeah, I am doing as a little bit of a hobby, but I just realized as a business decision, it was not smart to be moving engines for the next big release. So I just want to talk about quickly the lessons learned and the differences in Decaying Salvage from the last game We Are Not Alone. So I've already talked about the interactivity and the sound in the environment, how important those are to me, but there's a few other big differences, and I'm really happy that I've realized these and kind of made that change moving forward. The first one is that there will be a lot less dialogue in Decaying Salvage. The main problem with We Are Not Alone heading towards the end was basically getting all the voice acting done. There was so many little conversations between characters or so many little comments that the character would make that it just blew out how many lines were in there. I think there was something like lines of dialogue. It was absolutely ridiculous. Now, some of that might be duplicated with old scenes. I can't remember exactly how many needed to be recorded, but it was insane. And yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why, unless it becomes a lot more profitable, We Are Not Alone won't get translations, because it's a big task. The quotes I've had for translation work are just kind of crazy. There will still be dialogue, of course, in Decaying Salvage, but a lot of the story will be told through the environment, through things you find in the environment, and not through massive bouts of exposition and dialogue choices. I think it's just really the way to go moving forward. Oh, that's gone cold. The other big change is more open environments. So We Are Not Alone from the get-go, I decided to start working on small rooms. There was two reasons. The first thing is I really wanted to port the game to Switch, which will be happening again if it makes more money and becomes profitable to do so. And the other thing is that I really wanted to convey kind of that idea of the old adventure games, where everything was its own little scene with all these little interactions. And actually there's a third reason. The third reason, and it's something that still was way too crazy to handle, is that all the interactions and everything that had to load and change depending on where you were in the game, it was just unmanageable to do it in a big thing with all those dialogues, with all those changing things, and it gives me chills just thinking about that again. It was honestly just a complete mess, but the game came out, so I'm happy. But in the new game, open environments. Everything you're seeing here, you can walk through. There's no loading screens from when you get onto the ship to hopefully when you leave the ship. When you go between levels of each ship, there might be some kind of little loading thing just to kind of ease my issues with optimization. I've learnt a lot about optimization since making We Are Not Alone. Decaying Salvage looks a lot better. The lighting is increased. The environments are bigger, yet it's running a lot smoother than We Are Not Alone ever did, even after that last patch I did that increased frame rates. So yeah, more open environments, less exposition, more about just environmental storytelling, and I'm really excited. So the other thing I did, and I mentioned right at the start of the video, is I completed a funding application. Now, I won't know for 12 weeks whether I actually get this, but yeah, fingers crossed, it's all good. A lot more care. I put a lot of effort into the previous ones, but a lot more care and planning and consideration went into things such as the budget planning, the words I chose when doing all the documentation, the prototype documentation, and things such as the project roadmap, and the marketing plans. I put a lot more effort and consideration into what I was saying this time around than I ever did for my previous applications, or for especially the We Are Not Alone application. That was, looking back, that was rough, but I've learned a lot. So, you know, keep moving forward, keep going. A huge part of the application was getting the prototype ready as well, because that was required, having a playable prototype. Now, it doesn't need to be insanely polished, it is a prototype, but I kind of went down the route of, I want to convey everything in my game. I want to show you the atmosphere, which requires decent lighting and everything like that. I want to show the interactivity and the puzzles. I want to show the soundscape that I'm going for at the moment. And it really was difficult. The worst thing, well, actually, it's kind of the best thing. The original layout went from this huge thing, and it had, you know, big twisting corridors, all these different areas to explore, and the real issue, honestly, it was way too big. I sat there a couple of weeks before trying to get the demo finalized for Screen Australia, and just kind of had to talk to myself. I'm like, hey, this isn't right, you know, this is way too much work. And this is something that if you are a dev or you're doing anything as well, you need to be really conscious of. How can I take what I've got and condense it down to a better experience? If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have probably got the demo finished, or if I did, it would have just been in not such a great state. The older way I was going to do the demo too would have taken far too long to try and convey the point. It would have taken longer than 15 minutes to show everything from environmental interactivity to the lighting to the atmosphere to everything. So yeah, I drilled it down, show the puzzles, show the environment, show the interactivity, show the atmosphere, show the creatures and how that kind of stuff works. And miraculously, it feels so much better than what I had previously started working on. I managed to do it. I managed to complete the demo with time to spare, so I could do little bug fixes and polishes and just spend more time on the documentation I was talking about before. I'm really, really happy with it and really proud of myself of how it's turned out. Hopefully a public demo will be available soon. I'm just still considering whether I kind of expand on it some more for the public release, or kind of just keep that condensed little experience to just give a little taste. If I do the little taste, it'll probably be a limited release demo. So if you want to know exactly when that's coming out, and you want any more information on what kind of demo would be, little behind the scenes things, just sign up to the newsletter. There is a link down in the description. Okay, I think this about wraps things up. This is the first devlog I've done in a while. I feel kind of like I'm energetic and excited. If you haven't seen the trailer for Decaying Salvage, please go do so, and please go wishlist on Steam. Every single wishlist helps so much, and I would really appreciate if you could do that for me. But yeah, the new game is coming along. I'm really, really happy with it. I'm really happy to finally be able to make this idea that I've had for so long. It feels fantastic. I'm energized, I'm excited, I'm making something new. I'm not just patching We Are Not Alone for the 100th freaking time, which I will still keep patching it, that's fine. It's just, I just got into this loop where I'm like, oh, this is tiny little thing, I gotta fix it, release a patch. And a patch for We Are Not Alone is not as simple as just pushing a button. There's the Mac, Linux, Windows, GOG, Epic, and Steam. It's intense. But anyway, we can talk about that at some other point. I'm constantly screen recording when I'm doing dev work and making notes as I go, so there should be a lot of content for devlogs moving forwards, fingers crossed. If you got any questions or just want to say, hey, your trailer looks cool, just leave it down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I really, really would. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. My name is Andrew from Stasis Booth Games. I'm developing Decaying Salvage. Go wishlist it, please. I will see you next time.